everybody, and welcome back to D-Ray's shop. Today Randy and I are working on a 2012 Polaris Ranger 800. The customer brought it in. He said that after you warmed it up and rode it for a little bit, that it would start losing engine power, and basically it was just running on one cylinder. Also, the check engine light would come on. This is a real common problem that we run into a lot here at the shop, so we thought it'd be a good subject for a video. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to show you how to retrieve the diagnostic engine code off the machine, and then we're going to show you how to repair it. And basically what's going on with this machine is it's losing an injector. There's actually not anything wrong with the injector itself, it's just basically a wiring problem. So we'll show you how to fix that. Let's get to it. I'm taking a shot here of the speedometer, and I'm going to show you how to get the codes off of it. So what I'm going to do is zoom in here and take a little closer look at it. This is your button that you normally go through all your different functions. You know, your miles, hours, engine temperature, so forth and so on. Okay, so now when your check engine light comes on, what this button actually does is it adds an additional function. So what you can do is you can scroll through your functions and it'll add one. It says check engine. Okay, now once you get to that one, you just simply hold the button down for a few seconds, and now the check engine light will start flashing and it will give you your engine code. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll take this code down and then we'll look it up and see what it is. Okay, so after checking on the internet, that code 06515, that tells us that that is a problem with the injector on the mag side. Now on Polaris's, on multi-cylinder engines, they refer to each cylinder, whether it be the mag side or the PTO side. Mag side would be the passenger side. It's also the side that the magneto is on, your stator, your flywheel, and that such. PTO side is going to be the driver's side, which obviously is going to be, they call it PTO for power takeoff, which has got your drive pulley, your belt drive, and all that. Okay, so now that we know where that's at, I'm going to show you a little trick to show you how to verify that that is indeed where your problem is, and I'm going to show you the exact problem area that we're going to address and show you how to fix. Okay, well, I've got our seat removed so we can get a good shot at those injectors. Now I'm going to pull in here a little closer, and we've got our injectors right there on the motor. That one right there is going to be your, what they call the mag side injector. The other one is going to be the PTO injector, which is going to be on the driver's side. Of course, our injector in question is the one on the mag side. And what you see there is that connector, and you can see the wires that come out of the harness that go over to that are wrapped in a white tape. And that's where our problem is, right where it goes into the weather pack connector, right there where Randy's pointing. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire this thing up and we'll show you exactly where the problem area is. Okay, we've got the engine running now, and you can tell it's hitting on both cylinders. Now Randy's going to wiggle that wire going in that injector. Listen to that, it's losing cylinder, coming back on, losing cylinder, yep, right there at the connector. Okay, now that we know where our problem is, right here where this wire goes into this connector here, now I want to explain to you why it does that. Now, as you can tell, when that engine was running, since it's rubber mounted, the motor tends to vibrate a fair amount. Your injector wires go into this plastic clip, which is clipped onto the fuel rail. But as you can see, it's not a real tight fit. So it allows those wires to wiggle while the engine's running. And over many years and many hours, that wire wiggling right in there in the end of that terminal, eventually the strands of copper in there start fatiguing, and finally they get to where they're just basically all broke. And the insulation is the only thing holding it in there at all. So a lot of times what will happen is when you start it up cold, it may run fine, but when it warms up and the vinyl insulation starts warming up and getting soft, it allows that to expand or move, and then it starts breaking your connection. Now, another thing to know is this injector harness is removable from the injector, but they do not sell the sub harness by itself. In order to replace this, you have to buy an injector, and the connection here from the factory was actually glued together. They didn't intend for it to come apart. But Randy's going to show you how to ease that out of there without destroying it. Then we're going to get this over on the workbench, and then we'll show you how to disassemble this and how to repair it and put it back together. And I'm going to show you a little fix to get rid of this plastic clip here, and we're going to secure these a little bit tighter. So once you make this repair, it'll be a little more permanent. Now, one other thing to note, when we go to disconnect the harnesses, we're going to do the injectors one at a time, because you don't want to get your wiring mixed up from the PTO side to the mag side, because they do have to go in a specific order. So when we take our connections loose here, then we'll do them one at a time. You'll follow your little sub harness down, and it's going to go right over here, right above the belt cover. And then you've got two connections here. You've got a gray one and a white one. Okay, Randy's fixing to remove the connection from that injector, and what he's going to start with is that holder. You got to take your little pick tool and pop the connection open, and when you get it popped, it just swings up, and that releases the sub harness. Okay, now he's going to go on over to the injector, and it's got a little lock tab. It's hard to see from this side, but on the other side of that terminal there is a push lever that holds it onto the injector itself. And since it's glued on there, you got to be real careful. Just kind of pry around on it with a tool until you finally get it taken loose there. There you go. All right. Now he's going to come over here and disconnect it from the main harness. We'll get it over on the workbench and we'll get that thing fixed. Okay, we've got our injector sub harness here on the workbench. I'm going to pull it in there a little bit closer. And what Randy's going to do is we're going to start off by taking off the white tape that's covering those wires. We're going to cut all that off there very carefully so we don't damage any of the wiring under that. And then once we get all that off of there, then we'll work on getting the terminals extracted out of the connector. Next, we're going to extract the terminal out of the connector itself. And what Randy's going to use to extract that out of there is he's just going to take a T-pin. Now the terminals, when they go into the connector, there's a little plastic tab that locks it in place. So what he's going to do is he's going to reach in there with that T-pin. He's going to pull very gently, pull that tab back, which will release that terminal, and he should be able to slide it out of the back of the connector. Just like that. Okay. Now we're going to do these one at a time so we don't get the polarity reversed on the injector wires. So next we'll see if we can get that terminal off there. Now that Randy's got that one terminal out, I'll try to give you a little bit better shot of where that lock tab is. It's basically going to be, here's another terminal that's still in it. It's going to be right in front of it. You can almost see it right here. And it doesn't take much pressure. You just want to pull it back just enough to release that terminal so that you can remove it. You don't want to damage your connector. Now we got this terminal out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to uncrimp this area on the terminal, and then we're going to slide this weather pack seal up the wire a little bit because we're going to reuse that. And once we get that out of the way, we can't uncrimp where the wire is crimped into the terminal because it's just too fragile. You'll ruin it in the process. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fold the wire back and forth until it just breaks from the terminal. Then we'll just skin back a little bit of wire and we're going to solder it back to the terminal. Then we'll replace the weather pack seal and then we'll re-crimp it onto the terminal. Okay, now as Randy's uncrimping that thing, you can see that he's not opening the crimp way up on it. He's just going to open it up just enough to slide that seal back so that he can reuse it. Now he's just going to rock that thing back and forth until he breaks the wire completely off. Now he's just going to go back a little ways and cut that off so he makes sure he's past where the break is in the wire. And when you go to strip that off, I'm going to show you this terminal here, get you a little closer shot of it. Come on, focus. All right. He's just going to strip off enough to cover where the original crimp would have been, because that's where we're going to put the solder at. So that's all that needs to be stripped off of it. Just like that. Okay. Now we're going to tin both of those with a little bit of solder and solder them together. what Randy's doing is he's re-crimping his weather pack seal to help hold that wire in place. And he's going to take and push that wire down to where it's contacting the terminal itself. And by re-crimping that on there like that, it's going to help that wire stay right up against it. So it makes it a little bit easier when you go to solder it back on. So he's taking just a little bit of solder, put a little bit of soldering paste on it, and you don't want a whole lot of solder on that. You want just enough to solder that wire to the terminal. Once you get it soldered on there, that's what it should look like. Alright, and that's ready to reinstall into the connector. Alright, now Randy's going to reinstall that terminal back into the connector. And what you want to do is make sure that you have the terminal facing the correct way so that it will lock into the connector. And you can go by the one that's already in there, so you can have them both facing the same direction. That way the lock will catch and hold that terminal in place. Now once you got it pushed in all the way, make sure it clicks, and then give that wire a little tug to make sure that the lock engaged into the terminal. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to move on to the next wire. Now Randy's got all the terminals redone and re-wrapped with electrical tape, so that harness is ready to reinstall on the machine. Randy's getting ready to reinstall this sub harness onto the injector. Before we do that, there's one more thing we got to take care of. Sometimes when you disconnect the connection from the injector, you can see that little blue silicone seal that seals that connector to the injector. And a lot of times that's supposed to stay in the connector, not on the injector. So what he's going to do is he's going to ease that out of there, because if you try to connect it and leaving it in the injector, it's not going to want to do right, and it'll just wad up and not plug in. Randy's got that seal out of there now. He's going to install that back onto that connector. Yep, just press it down there flush, and now it's ready to connect to the injector. There you go, just push it down till you hear that click. Alright, now we're going to connect the other end and fire this thing up and see how it does. No check engine light. Everything's running good. Over that a little bit. Yep. Got a good connection there. Sounds good. Alright, now we're going to pull the other injector harness off and do the same thing with it. Okay, Randy's got both injector sub harnesses redone. So the last thing we're going to do is address this sub harness clip that's attached to the fuel rail, because that was what our original cause for having the wiring issue was to begin with. So Randy is just going to remove that thing, and we'll just take it off there and discard it, because we're not going to use that anymore. So once we get that out of the way, next he's going to take the sub harnesses, we're going to take some zip ties, and we're just going to zip tie them directly to the fuel rail. Those zip ties will keep those wires from moving around, and that should keep us from having this problem again in the future. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our fuel injector sub-harness repair on our Polaris 800 Ranger. Not too hard to do. I mean, heck, if us two rednecks can do it, I know you can too. So be sure to stop by D-Ray's shop sometime. You never know what we're going to be working on next. Be sure to drop a couple comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and also click the notification bell so that you can get notifications of our future videos. All right, well, appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good one. We'll catch y'all next time around. Now, when the check engine light comes on, that's your cue, Randy. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so after checking, well, all right, that's going to do, yeah, that's going to do it. It's just about done. Man, maybe I need a beer. Be sure to leave some comments in the comment section below. And Randy, turn that damn phone off.